Well, in May, we left England in the spring, which is probably my favourite month here, and went off to do some work in Singapore and then go on to Vietnam. And it was just really interesting to go from England in a mild, warm spring with little bulbs and buds popping up, and just suddenly landing 24 hours later in Singapore, hot, steamy, lots of thunderstorms, very exciting, and such a hectic place. And we were in a lovely hotel. Met up with some old friends that we hadn't seen for a few months, went off and found a Chinese restaurant where I have to say I had one of the best Chinese meals of my life. I have no idea what it was we ate. We kind of left it to the waiter, but it was just absolutely wonderful food. And then we got into the business event of the whole thing, which was really stimulating. One, it was the whole of the Pacific Rim, so there was a multitude of nationalities there, but all of them really, really excited, even the ones that you instinctively think are going to be really inscrutable, and they weren't at all. They were incredibly excited. They were very welcoming to us. We were very much the minority. It welcomed us onto the table. We couldn't speak to each other, but we just did lots of smiling. It was really fun to share all of that. Most of the presentations were in English, but with simultaneous translation into every language that was represented. Our guest speaker was one of our senior American colleagues, who's a multimillionaire and delightful guy, and was absolutely on fire. He really had a message to give. We did all of those things. We did all of the trainings. We were there with most of our Vietnamese group. They were really excited. It was the first time that Vietnam had been open and was part of the whole Pacific Rim event. And we did the more traditional things, like having Singapore slings with a few friends in Raffles Hotel, which everybody has to do. And then after that, when the whole event was over, we went back to Vietnam to do some more work there in training some of the people who were already involved, bringing in new people, because we're helping them develop their businesses and transforming their own lives financially and emotionally in every possible way. So it was, one way or another, a really great May. Well, we have international events that we run throughout the year where lots and lots of us gather together who are doing the same kind of business and share experiences and do trainings and all those kinds of things. And we had a big pan-European event this July in Stockholm. And it was my first visit to Stockholm, and I must say it was a gorgeous city. I mean, I knew it was on the water, but I didn't appreciate just to quite what extent the water is part of the city. The sun just shone all the time, so it was absolutely lovely. Pavement cafes, having breakfast outside in the sunshine by the water was just lovely. So it was a beautiful city and beautiful place to have an event. And then I always have to pick out the highlights, the bits that make a big difference to me, but out of that whole event there are a couple of salient points that really make an impression on me. One of them was a whole half-day's presentation on sports nutrition and how athletes can use really, really serious nutrition to give them that edge so that their body is performing at their absolute peak. And to some extent, though it was talking about elite athletes, we were also had our doctors talking about, for those of us who just want to stay fit and energetic and are amateur weekend athletes, the same principle applies to us too. So I just found that really fascinating. Meeting the strongest man in the world who uses these products and was telling us what he does. A really high-class American baseball player talking about what he does, because that's a completely different kind of muscle and energy requirement. So it was just really, really interesting. And then the other thing that made a big impression on me, partly because it was in Stockholm, we had a presentation from Dr. Louis Ignarro, who won the Nobel Prize for Medicine in 1998 for his research into nitric oxide and what it does for the body in controlling the blood supply. So he gave us a fascinating presentation on all of that, and then again bringing it back down to each individual, how we can use a product like Nightworks to actually help to increase our own blood supply and do all sorts of other really good things within our bodies using that. So I found that really fascinating, and I suppose then the glamour bit was that we had a wonderful ball, a masked ball, full evening dress in the grand ballroom of the hotel where the original first Nobel Prize was awarded, and it's a beautiful room, just exquisite, and the surroundings do set the scene and they do influence the mood. And this was just a fabulous gilded painted ceiling. We had opera singers, we had a complete musicians, a trio, so we had a wonderful dinner. So it was music, dancing, singing in the most gorgeous room, all dressed up in our glamour, wearing our masks, and it was just a lovely evening. So that was my quick impression of Stockholm as a place to go and do business and have fun. Lockout.
So the beginning of December saw us flying out to Malta. This was again business, but there was going to be a huge amount of pleasure involved as well. We had allocated a couple of days for personal time, but the winter weather, both the UK and in Europe, kind of tripped things up, and we managed to spend a night marooned in Frankfurt and taking a hotel there. But we did finally get out to Malta and found the sun shining. It was absolutely lovely. We had a fabulous hotel, and pretty soon we were linking up with our friends, with our colleagues. Always great to see them. Now the purpose of the best part of a week in Malta, apart from a serious strategy meeting, was really for training those people who are serious about the business that we're in. And by serious, what I mean is they'd already reached the stage in their business careers where, to some extent, they were pretty much financially secure. But what they wanted to do was to complete the last part of their journey and absolutely bolt that fact into place. And that means that they're a pretty exciting, dynamic bunch to be around. So we were fortunate to be on the training team, and that provided plenty of stimulus during the week, as did the parties, because if there's one thing we do, yes, we do work hard, but we also play hard. And there were a couple of absolutely classic parties. We had one which involved going into the city centre of Valletta and going onto the premises above the battery. So we had this real cannon salute which sort of launched the evening, and that was an absolutely fabulous way to close the week. We also have one of our senior members of our team who was instrumental in helping us to get going with our business, who actually lives in Malta and just has one of the most spectacular apartments with the most spectacular view out over Valletta Harbour, which as harbour view goes has to be one of the world greats. So we had a lot going for us in that week, and then it was flying back on the Friday night, just in time to do a one-day training and finish the year again in exciting fashion here in the UK, to wrap everything up with all the UK teams before we headed home to spend Christmas here. And now we're just starting to gear up for the new year and for a very exciting 2011.